Donald Trump isn't mincing words when it comes to the BRICS nations and their plans for a new currency. He's made it crystal clear. Any move to challenge the dominance of the US dollar will come with serious consequences. He's doubling down on his commitment to keeping the dollar as the world's top currency, warning that any country daring to push for an alternative will face sky-high tariffs, 100% in some cases. Late last year, Trump delivered a blunt message. BRICS has zero chance of replacing the US dollar in global trade or anywhere else. And if any country tries, they'll be hit with tariffs and effectively shut out of the American market. His stance hasn't changed. Earlier this year, he took to social media to hammer the point home. No rival currencies, no exceptions. He wants an explicit commitment from BRICS nations that they won't attempt to sideline the dollar. If they do, he's ready to pull the trigger on full-scale economic penalties. But despite Trump's hardline warning, Brazil, the current leader of the BRICS bloc, is pushing forward with its own financial reforms. They're working on ways to move away from the US dollar, making it easier for countries to trade in their local currencies instead. Part of their strategy? Tapping into cutting-edge technologies like blockchain and upgrading global payment systems to be more seamless and independent. They're even taking notes from their wildly successful BRICS payment system, which has been a game-changer in Brazil, outpacing traditional payment methods since its 2020 launch. Brazil has already set up a system that lets it trade directly with Argentina, Uruguay, and Paraguay using its own currency, the real, skipping the US dollar altogether. The catch? It still takes a few days to process payments, but with new technologies like instant digital transactions on the horizon, there's growing excitement about making these trades faster, safer, and cheaper. Later this month, as world leaders gather in South Africa for the G20 meetings, BRICS nations will be holding their own discussions on the sidelines. Brazil is expected to lay out its vision for the future of BRICS financial cooperation ahead of the big summit in July. And with the group now growing, welcoming countries like Egypt, Ethiopia, Indonesia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE, momentum is building for a shift in the way global trade is handled. At the heart of this push is a desire for more financial independence. Many emerging economies are looking for ways to reduce their reliance on the US dollar, aiming to strengthen their own financial systems and create more flexible trade options. But how did the dollar become so powerful in the first place? It all started after World War II, when world leaders gathered in Bretton Woods in 1944 to reshape the global economy. They decided to peg their currencies to the US dollar, which in turn was tied to gold. This system brought stability and made the dollar the centerpiece of international trade, solidifying America's economic influence. That setup worked for decades, until 1971, when President Nixon shocked the world by cutting the dollar's direct link to gold. That move ended the Bretton Woods system and ushered in a new era where exchange rates were allowed to float freely. But instead of losing its grip, the dollar held on to its dominance, thanks in part to a new deal with oil-producing nations in the 1970s. Known as the petrodollar system, this agreement ensured that oil sales would be priced exclusively in US dollars, further cementing its place in global finance. Even today, the dollar remains king. Deep financial markets, political stability, and powerful international institutions keep it at the center of global trade. But with countries now exploring new ways to trade outside its influence, the question remains, how long will the dollar's reign last? Donald Trump has made it clear. He's watching the BRICS nations closely. His latest remarks show just how concerned the US is about the growing efforts to move away from the dollar. If countries succeed in ditching the dollar for trade, the ripple effects could be huge. Less demand for US government bonds, higher borrowing costs, and a weakened position for the US on the global stage. But what's really happening behind the scenes? Are BRICS nations actually making progress in breaking free from the dollar's grip? One of the biggest trends right now is the push for countries to trade in their own currencies instead of using the dollar as a middleman. Take China and Brazil, for example. In early 2023, they struck a deal to trade directly in their own currencies, the Chinese yuan, CNY, and the Brazilian real, BRL. That means they no longer need to convert money into dollars first, making trade smoother and reducing the risks that come with fluctuating exchange rates. This is a big deal, especially when you consider the numbers. In 2022, trade between China and Brazil hit roughly $150 billion, with China being Brazil's biggest trading partner. By using their own currencies, these countries can cut costs and gain more control over their financial systems. Meanwhile, Iran and Russia have been working behind the scenes to sidestep Western sanctions and strengthen their financial ties. They've linked their banking systems, allowing businesses to make direct payments without going through US-controlled networks. Now, their national payment networks are connected, and each country accepts the other's bank cards, giving them a way to trade without needing dollars. And it doesn't stop there. In early 2023, Iran and Russia took things a step further by integrating their banking networks into a larger financial system. This move allows Iranian banks to connect with Russian institutions and more than 100 banks across 13 other countries. The key to this strategy: Russia's SPFS system, which serves as an alternative to SWIFT, the global messaging network controlled by the West. By using SPFS, these countries can send financial messages, issue letters of credit, and process transactions without relying on Western banking infrastructure. This not only strengthens economic ties within the BRICS bloc, but also makes it harder for Western sanctions to disrupt their economies. On July 6, 2024, Iran made a major financial move by linking its Shtab banking network with Russia's Mir payment system. This means Russian tourists and businesses in Iran can now use their Mir cards just like they would back home, making payments and transactions much easier. The goal? To reduce dependence on Western-controlled financial systems and strengthen trade between the two countries. A few months later, by November 2024, the partnership deepened even further. Iranian bank cards were officially accepted in Russia. Now, Iranian citizens can easily withdraw cash and make payments while in Russia, creating a smoother financial bridge between the two economies. Russia has been building similar connections with other key trade partners. India, for instance, started shifting towards local currency transactions with Russia in the energy sector after Western sanctions hit Moscow in 2022. By 2023, Russia had become India's #1 supplier of crude oil, with a significant portion of payments made in Indian rupees instead of US dollars. This setup helped both countries insulate themselves from external financial pressures and maintain steady trade flows. Meanwhile, South Africa, another BRICS member, has also been leaning into local currency transactions. China, South Africa's biggest trade partner, saw trade between the two nations surpass $50 billion in 2023. To streamline payments and reduce reliance on the dollar, South Africa signed agreements to pay for certain imports like machinery and electronics in Chinese yuan. This move not only simplifies transactions but also increases liquidity in African markets, giving them more financial flexibility. Quick pause. If you're finding this topic interesting, don't forget to hit that like button. It helps more people see this video, and if you've got thoughts to share, drop a comment below. We'd love to hear your take. Now let's get back to it. BRICS has also launched its own game-changing financial tool, BRICS Pay, a decentralized payment system designed to make cross-border transactions seamless. With this platform, businesses and individuals can send and receive money in their local currencies, avoiding the need for conversions into dollars. The system blends centralized domestic payment networks with a decentralized setup for international transactions, allowing each country to stay compliant with its own financial regulations, while still benefiting from cutting-edge technology. Key national systems, like Russia's Mir, India's UPI, and China's UnionPay, are all integrated into the network, ensuring secure and efficient transactions at home. On the global stage, blockchain technology powers BRICS Pay's international transactions, allowing for direct peer-to-peer payments without middlemen. This means faster, more cost-effective settlements in real time. The system's distributed ledger also ensures transparency, security, and the ability to automate processes using smart contracts, making cross-border trade smoother than ever. BRICS Pay is built for the future. Designed to grow effortlessly, it can handle a rising number of transactions without slowing down, making it a flexible solution for different financial systems across member nations. One of its biggest strengths? Seamless cross-border payments. Unlike traditional banking systems that often struggle with compatibility, BRICS Pay is structured to connect different national payment networks, allowing money to move quickly between countries. Thanks to its decentralized setup, transactions settle in real time using local currencies, ensuring smoother financial flows and reducing the need for costly intermediaries. This approach isn't just about convenience, it's about shifting the balance of global finance. By encouraging trade in national currencies, BRICS Pay challenges the long-standing dominance of the US dollar and moves toward a more balanced, multipolar financial landscape. With this system in place, BRICS countries gain greater control over their economies, shielding themselves from external financial pressures and sanctions. In October 2024, during the 16th BRICS Summit in Kazan, Russia, the long-anticipated BRICS Pay platform officially launched. World leaders and financial experts watched live demonstrations showcasing how the system works in real time, proving that it's not just an idea, but a fully operational alternative to Western-dominated financial networks. But BRICS isn't stopping at payments. To further strengthen its financial security, the group has been stockpiling gold at an unprecedented rate. By the middle of 2024, BRICS nations collectively held around 6,200 tons of gold, making up over 21% of the world's total reserves. Russia leads the pack with 2,340 tons, holding 8.1% of global reserves, while China follows closely with 2,060 tons at 7.8%. Brazil, in particular, has been aggressively increasing its gold holdings, nearly tripling its reserves since 2018. This massive accumulation signals a strategic push to fortify economic defenses and create a buffer against currency fluctuations and geopolitical uncertainties. BRICS nations are making a bold financial move, one that's all about control, security, and reshaping the global economy. By diversifying their reserves and reducing dependence on a single currency, they're building a financial safety net that protects them from external pressures, including sanctions and market instability. Gold has become a key piece of this strategy. Unlike paper money, which can lose value due to inflation or political decisions, gold is a timeless asset that holds its worth even during economic downturns. By stockpiling gold, BRICS countries are ensuring they have a strong backup plan, one that keeps their economies stable no matter what happens on the world stage. But this isn't just about playing defense, it's about creating a new financial order. The launch of BRICS Pay, a payment system that enables cross-border transactions in local currencies, is a major step toward financial independence. By integrating gold reserves with decentralized financial tools, BRICS nations are building a self-sufficient system that doesn't rely on traditional Western-controlled networks like the US dollar or SWIFT. The dollar's dominance has long given the United States a powerful grip on the global economy. When the Federal Reserve makes policy changes, the ripple effects are felt everywhere, often causing economic instability in other countries. By breaking away from dollar dependence, BRICS nations are reclaiming control over their own financial policies, reducing their exposure to sudden shocks and restrictions. One of the biggest risks of relying on the dollar? Sanctions. The US has used its financial system as a geopolitical tool, limiting access to banking networks for countries it opposes. To counter this, Russia and China have been actively working on alternatives that allow them to trade and settle payments without interference. This trend isn't just about geopolitics. It's a major shift in how central banks manage their money. For decades, most countries kept large portions of their reserves in US dollars, but now many are turning to gold and other currencies to spread out their risk. This diversification weakens the dollar's dominance and gives nations more flexibility in global trade. At the same time, China and Russia are promoting their own currencies on the world stage. Instead of defaulting to the dollar, they're offering alternatives that allow countries to trade more directly. A perfect example? China and Brazil's agreement to use their own currencies for trade, cutting out the middleman and making transactions cheaper and more efficient. The global economy is changing, and with it, the way countries handle money. As emerging markets gain more power, they're moving toward using their own currencies in trade, reflecting their growing influence. Instead of depending on the US dollar, they're building financial systems that put their own economies first. Donald Trump isn't happy about it. He's made it clear. Any effort by BRICS nations to reduce the dollar's dominance won't go unanswered. In a fiery post on Truth Social, he demanded that BRICS nations pledge not to create a competing currency. If they refuse, he's threatening 100% tariffs and a total shutdown of trade with the US. Throughout his campaign, Trump has been pushing a hardline economic strategy, vowing to make it too costly for any nation to move away from the dollar. With his inauguration just around the corner, tensions are rising, and his latest statements only add fuel to the fire. This isn't new for Trump. He's long used tariffs as a political and economic weapon. Reports suggest that his team is already drafting plans to punish countries that trade outside of the dollar system. The options on the table include blocking key exports, labeling certain nations as currency manipulators, and slapping even more tariffs on foreign goods. Recently, Trump sat down with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to talk trade and border security, hinting at possible efforts to smooth relations. But make no mistake, Trump's stance remains aggressive. He's made it clear. If any country tries to sideline the dollar, they'll be cut off from the US economy entirely. As he prepares for his second term, expect economic warfare to be a key part of his strategy. His trade policies could shake up global markets, drive up costs, and reshape relationships between the world's biggest economies. BRICS' challenge to the dollar. The BRICS nations, meanwhile, aren't backing down. Their push for a new financial system, including a potential alternative currency, has sent shockwaves through Western financial circles. These efforts are part of a broader plan to chip away at the dollar's hold on global trade. China, for instance, has been actively negotiating local currency trade agreements, while Russia and Iran have already integrated their banking systems to avoid US sanctions. In another bold move, Trump has floated the idea of imposing a 10% tariff on all Chinese imports and a 25% duty on goods from Mexico and Canada, unless they enforce stricter border controls and crack down on drug trafficking. Donald Trump is making it clear. He's not going to sit back while countries explore alternatives to the US dollar. His campaign is built on a promise to push back hard against any effort to weaken America's financial power. And he's already making waves in global markets with threats of sweeping new tariffs on key trade partners. The idea of moving away from the dollar has been gaining traction for years, but things escalated after the 2023 BRICS Summit, where leaders openly discussed ways to reduce reliance on the dollar in global trade. Many nations saw this as an opportunity to build a more balanced financial system, especially after US-led sanctions on Russia in 2022 left several countries questioning the risks of depending too heavily on the dollar. Trump, however, sees this shift as a direct threat to US dominance. His campaign has made it clear. He's prepared to confront any economic alliance that challenges the dollar's supremacy. His administration has already sounded the alarm, warning that countries joining the push for a new financial order could face economic retaliation. The stakes are high. If the dollar loses its grip as the world's primary reserve currency, America's influence over global finance could shrink significantly. That's why Trump has stepped up his warnings to BRICS nations, making it clear that aligning with the bloc could mean strained relations with the US and serious economic consequences. But despite these threats, many countries remain committed to forging their own financial path. The BRICS initiative isn't just about challenging the dollar, it's about redefining global power dynamics, giving emerging economies a bigger say in how money moves across the world. For these nations, the chance to build a more independent and fair financial system is worth the risk of standing up to US pressure. If you found this video interesting, be sure to hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe.